Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey folks, Jason here. So I just wanted to take the time to do an episode on AI and ChatGPT and the BARD thing from Google, because the whole world has gone collectively crazy about this whole thing. And, I just want to take a couple of moments and try to get my head around it. I have to say that, look, the pin's already out of the grenade. It's not like we can shove the pin back in and say these are bad products. They allow, students to plagiarize in a whole new way. And I think when we do that, that's really fear-based thinking. And so I look at some of the school districts' responses to kids using ChatGPT, and are they using it in an improper manner? Yeah, absolutely. But I think they're missing the bigger picture here, is that AI and these tools, these open tools, are not going anywhere. These are here to stay, and this is actually causing this amazing revolution in technology, and it is going to affect your life. I don't care how much you hate technology and don't want anything to do with it. It is going to change the way you work. I guarantee it. And if we're not opening ourselves up to teaching these next generations how to responsibly use these tools and unlock curiosity about them, I think we're doing them a tremendous disservice. So I reached out to my friend Nelson Valderrama. He is the founder of Intuilize that uses AI to sift through massive amounts of data in your company and do optimization of pricing and optimization of inventory. But he's been around the AI world for several years now and really has a decent handle on the capability and what you can do with these products. And so I wanted to reach out to him and have a discussion about where we're headed here and maybe where we should encourage people to head to go forward. Anyhow, love my conversation with Nelson, and I hope you do too. This episode is brought to you by Connected Peers, an online peer collaboration platform for distribution professionals. Let's face it, most managers don't have the opportunity to speak with their industry peers about common challenges in their departments. Sure, they might see each other at an annual conference, but that hardly provides any real relationship building or continuity. What if there was a forum to solve challenges with those in your same role? Well, now there is. The concept is simple. Purchasing managers meeting with purchasing managers, training managers meeting with training managers, marketing managers meeting with marketing managers. You get the idea. There are 10 unique role-based communities to choose from. These are monthly, facilitated meetings all via Zoom. Ask questions and receive feedback from people who understand the challenges of your position. Isn't it time that you quit going it alone? To learn more and find your peers, visit us at www.connectedpeers.com. Well, hi, Nelson. Welcome back to Distribution Talk. Always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jason, for having me here.
Well, we decided, last week to jump on an impromptu conversation based on some things that you and I have both seen in the media lately and really, discussions around AI. And I know that this is definitely in your wheelhouse. This is something you spend an awful lot of time around. So would you mind reminding the people how AI works in your company and what your background is around AI and that type of thing?
Definitely, Jason. Thanks. So what we do for companies, we help them out to improve their bottom line by optimizing or help them out to optimize their pricing and their inventory. So we are focusing on price optimization and inventory optimization. And how we do that is basically we go and look into the data that the distributors have in their ERP system and CRM. And we analyze that information. And what I said to my customers and prospects is that we hire thousands of millions of robots, and that's pretty much AI, to do that analysis for them. So that's what I said to them and to everyone is, in our case, is a little bit unfair because in this world, in order to do that happen, you may hire people, and with all the issues in hiring talent, it's challenging to find that. In our case, it's relatively easy because I just launched a Amazon Web Service instance, and suddenly I'm able to hire millions of robots working for the distributor on analyzing SKU by SKU, product by product, with different goals in mind. But at the end of the day, just to improve the bottom line.
When we look at really, kind of what distribution talk's all about, we talk about how things work in distribution in our previous conversation.
Yeah.
We looked at the massive amounts of data being crunched into a small, compressible venue so that people can get results. They can ask questions, get results and query. And that's really a lot of what your software does. But if you think about the hiring of millions of robots and really what artificial intelligence is, it has so many more applications. It's just broader application than what we talk about in crunching and optimization of, a couple basic things. But all of a sudden, and this is probably in the last, 3 to 4 weeks, AI has hit the mainstream headlines, and it is, it's running and gunning, and people are confused, scared, elated. There's this whole gambit of emotions around it. So, what do you see out there? I mean, obviously the big one, being talked about is ChatGPT. That's the one that got the big talk. And then, of course, people are trying to play around with it, understand it. I guess if you could share some of your familiarity with that type of software.
I think one of the things that happened in the last couple of weeks is that ChatGPT and other applications have been able to reach out the stream media and as well the consumer. So this concept about AI is not just there in the clouds that is working for someone, but it's more like, I can use this. So let me bring some reference. I think we have been using AI for a couple of years or decades now, but we don't know about it. For example, I will say most of the audience will use Apple Maps or use Google Maps when they are going from point 1 to point 2, right?
Yeah.
And that has been one of the main applications that are using AI for, quite a while. So let me put an example there. I know you live in Oregon. So let's say I wanted to go there and I never been there. So if I'm going and flying into whatever is the closest airport to go to your office, 20 years ago, I need to ask you, hey, Jason, how long it will take me to go from the airport to your office just to make sure I'm able to make it on time? I may you say, Nelson, it's 30 minutes. Today, I don't need to ask you that question because I can go in Google Maps and I say, this is the airport, point 1. This is the destination. Even I can choose the day and the time, and it will tell me how much traffic will be. So there is AI there. And the big difference, and people ask me also, all this buzz about AI, what is the difference between anything that we had in the past and what we have now? And it's about learning. We're having an algorithm that is learning.
Right.
And that's the big difference, right? So let's go back to what happened the last 2-3 weeks in terms of ChatGPT and so forth. I think this was launched out there, and now everyone that knows how to write English, they can go into this website and they can type almost any question that they think of, and they may get an answer in terms of in plain English about what it means. And if you wanted to use it, I have been using it now for 3 weeks and doing a lot of testing, and it's just fascinating the results that you can get. A lot of them are really bad sometimes because they are not even close, but I would say the majority of time is really, really helping us out. So I think we have been living under AI for quite a bit of time, as I say, with Google Maps or Apple Maps. But in the other side today now is being available to everyone that is interested on that. And I think anyone, and I'm pretty sure we talk about this, your kids and mine are using it. They don't mind.
Yes. Yeah. Much to our chagrin sometimes, but yes.
Exactly. Yeah. They are all for it. And I have this discussion with my kids, pretty much on the meals. And there is, I would say, a generation in between that is kind of thinking about it. And it's our generation, Jason, which we are like, wow, this is great. This is impressive, because we have been able to experience all these progress, right, in the last 30 years about coming from the fax machine now to having a machine that you can ask, hey, can you tell me what are the top distributors in Oregon? And it will display me those ones right away without me even looking at.
It's so interesting. Speaking of our children, seeing this now, I am absolutely admittedly just learned about this maybe 3 weeks ago. I was having breakfast with, some friends, and one of my friends had jumped on this and had signed up for an account, and he was using it to battle with the city of Bend and a developer. He was really working on the behalf of his HOA and trying to battle these folks with. And what he was doing is battling against attorneys, and he was using ChatGPT to grab case law, to grab precedent, and all of these other things. And he was kind of giggling at the table. He's like, look, these guys are spending thousands and thousands in legal fees, and I am just typing my query into ChatGPT, and I sound really pretty smart. He's able to battle without having to pull an attorney in. And that's really where the genesis was of me listening to him. I'm thinking, well, I got to understand this a little bit better. So, I went and looked at it and to try to figure this out a little bit. And I've played around with it. But I think one of the fascinating things was that the answers are pretty darn smart. I asked questions, things that clients would ask me. That was the really big eye opener is, things that clients would ask me. I said, you know what, I'm going to type this into the window and say, I think if I remember right, the example was, how can I safely reduce inventory in a distribution warehouse? And I got a pretty decent, essay and like 7 or 8 steps on how to do this. And I looked at it and I said, well, it's not exactly what I would have said, but it ain't bad. It's not bad. And my suspicion is, you mentioned learning. That was kind of the thing that over time, the more contributions to this, these systems occur, that those answers are going to get better and better and better, over time.
Yeah. And just going back to what you said, I mean, the reason why your friend was able to get a lot of great answers about his question about legal stuff has to do with the fact that when you put together these AI to work in terms of creating content, which is what they are doing, there is a technical terminology. I don't want to use it first because I don't think I can pronounce it properly, but more than that is our audience. But I think they're looking is, what is this? What this is doing basically is taking a lot of content that has been developed over the years. That means articles and books and all kind of content being built, and they are creating somehow that content and put it in a way that is meaningful for the computer. Basically, they're using something that is called vectors. So they're putting all this data in a way that now is being understood by the AI in a way that is comprehensive, and they are able to make sense of it. And this has been, years and years of development. And actually, we use this in forecasting. We use neural networks. And neural networks is basically a machine and an algorithm emulating how ideas are connected in our brain. So that's why it's so impressive, because it's using content. They are not making up the content. They're using someone's content that has been already curated. They are making sure what is the most rational matrix or a framework, right, for giving you an answer. And then they are pretty much describing that in the screen. And that's what you see. And there are definitely areas where there is much more curated content. Legal, that's one of them. So definitely that one. In distribution, I have doing some testing, as you see, and they have a great description, but it's very generic. You can see a spot out right there that the framework is well thought out, that you have all the different components, but the detail is not there. They are not that smart to give you all the nuances. And that's, I think, good news for you and I, right, Jeff?
Yeah. You mean we get to keep our jobs for a little longer? Is that not really what you're saying? Yeah.
But you see, that's what you just said. A lot of people get that fear, right? And we want to use this example, Jason. I think that's what I said to my customers. When I talk about what we do is, the first pushback that I receive from a lot of people in supply chain or sales is, there is just one gentleman, I think in Indiana, that he told me this 2 years ago. I was talking about this and he said, Nelson, are you taking my job? He was straightforward. I say, why? Well, because if you're doing forecasting, right, with this new level of accuracy, you are telling us what parts to buy, how many to buy, when to buy. And you are telling me what parts do I need to push out when I have bought it? What parts do I need to expedite? What are the issues with vendors? What do you want me to do? That's what I'm doing. And at that moment, I was like, man, he's right. I haven't explained that to him. And I said, well, all those things that you're explaining to me, they have value, but the value of those activities could be somehow semi-automated. And AI can help you out to make better decisions. So let's talk about what other things of more value you can do with us. And that's what the transformation that I'm going through all my customers, because I mean, for the people that are listening to us, let's put it in your side and our side. Imagine, Jason, that I come to you and say, Jason, by the way, I took all your articles that you have written the last 25 years. I compounded with another 30 different sources. And now all of your customers can just go into the ChatGPT and ask a question, just the one that you said. How can I reduce inventory in a 40,000 square feet warehouse, right? Fill of fasteners and MRO product in Michigan. Give me the 3 things that I can do to reduce, and start blinking. And in 4 seconds, you just lay out that boom, 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 boom. That would be scary for you, right?
It is scary. You're right. I mean, it's a bit scary. And I think that obviously there are nuances, and I can do this. And I looked at the results. Now, I think your query is actually a lot more detailed and better. And I'll get to the reason I suggest that in a minute. But there's that instant moment where like, ooh, somebody else is going to have the answer. And somebody else is going to be able to get the answer in 4 seconds or very quickly if they choose to. I think that there was a moment of fear. It's like, ooh, I might be replaceable in this. And I had to step back and think, okay, yes, the answer could be replicated and the answer could be spit out. But my feeling is advisors like myself will need to be shifting away from the answer providers to being people who can create a better question and can design the question so that the answer comes out better. And I think that if people like myself don't recognize that they are going to need to shift the manner that they advise, then yes, they could be replaceable. That was really my take on it, but it took me a little bit to get there.
But you see, I know this is your podcast, so I will do something maybe you will feel a little bit uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
Let's do this. So you mentioned a word that is very important. You recognize that. You recognize that, and at that moment, your brain will start thinking about how I can use this or how this is going to change my life. And that's exactly what is happening today in our lives, is how we respond to that. Do we want it to embrace the change? Do we want it to see if there is an opportunity on the change? Or we feel that's a threat for some of the audience? I don't know, that maybe they're in the 55, 65, 70. Maybe they are, you know what? I won't see this in my lifetime working, right? So I will leave this for the junior generations. But I'm pretty sure for the audience that are 30, 35, 40, they are super excited right now. It's like, what are these guys about to tell? Because I want to see the future. Now, let me put something for the audience here that is very, very important for me. When you have a company with the size of Google, with the amount of resources that they have, with the cash that they have, with the brand that they have, and they are reacting to what's going on in this specific area of creating and curating content with AI, and they lost $100 billion in market cap last week, because when they tried to fire back against what Microsoft and ChatGPT is doing with one of the worst demos of a product in our lifetime, they lost $100 billion in market cap, because the market was, if Google is responding to this and they are responding that bad, this is a threat for them. Does it make sense?
And you're referring to the launch of BARD?
Exactly, yeah.
Google's answer to this threat of
exactly,
this OpenAI product, which is backed by Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't put all that context. Yeah. But again, that's what the market is saying. The market is doing the same thing that you just mentioned. They recognize that. And markets tend to be efficient. They recognize a threat. they say, the biggest guy in the world in terms of digital world, which is Google, they are threatened by this. They are overreacting to this, and they are doing it in a manner that is not really the way you wanted to do it. Here we go, $100 billion out of the market cap. So the question will be for our audience is, are you recognizing this as a threat? Are you recognizing this as something that you don't care? Are you seeing this as an opportunity? I think in your case, with the question that I asked you, you're seeing this as an opportunity. Like, yeah, I know that in 5-10 years from now, anyone will be able to answer that basic question about, inventory reduction, the framework. So I won't be giving that answer. I won't be charging for that. But what can I do in order to be more relevant to my customer? Something like that, right?
It's a change in the value proposition. I mean, that's really what it is. It is my shift in value proposition. And honestly, I think if we as an advisor are so stuck in our ways that we can't see that we have to evolve with new technologies and new opportunities, then really we're not very good advisors any longer. Honestly, even though technically this could, and the use of tools like ChatGPT and whatever Google decides to come back with, and there are many others as well. There are many others that just don't have the press right now. If we fear that rather than embrace it and share that with our clients and say, hey, I think I found something that could really be a labor-saving tool for you, then we're not very good advisors at that point. We're not sharing the gift that we can see in front of us.
I agree with you. And again, I think you have one reaction. Let me show you a different reaction from my side. As you guys can hear, English is not my mother language. I learned English when I was 15 years old, and I still have issues with grammar and spelling and all that. And my kids remind me that in top of the thick accent that I have. And you know what? I mean, as a human, that has been a struggle for me, because when I wanted to communicate with people, I would love that, I have everything as I have in Spanish to communicate and convey my message. I mean, I'm just being honest here. And for years, I struggled on writing and responding to things because there is a lot of content that needs to be developed that way. So a couple of years ago, when I started playing with AI, before all this time, I started playing 2-3 years ago with different AI tools to help me out with that deficiency that I have, which is how I communicate in English, right? So today, when I see ChatGPT going out there, which I have been using for some time, I want just to disclose here, this is the way I use it, because I don't see it as a threat. I see something that can complement what I'm doing, which is I can go to ChatGPT and ask them, or ask of course, the AI to tell me some of the topics or the ideas or how to respond to this. So I already have my playbook that I have built for ChatGPT, which I have already in a Google Doc, and I can go there when I'm stuck. So I ask questions like, okay, can you please create an article outline for such and such? You and I both grow articles. Both of us have to do presentations. And sometimes I'm stuck and I don't have the time to go and talk with 3 people. I just wanted to get a framework. So I go to, ChatGPT and ask that, create a, article outline, and it does it. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't like this. But sometimes provide ideas that you know what? I forget about this. So I'm just giving a practical example. Is the computer doing my job? No, it's helping me out on providing ideas.
That's an interesting point. You've got a very interesting point, a very interesting use case, a personal use case.
Yes.
That really helps you overcome, some of the nuances of English and really allowing you to communicate more effectively with people in an audience. And I think, that's a brilliant use case for this, because I think people saw this in the media the last few weeks and they're like, well, okay, what do I do with this? Besides writing term papers and things like that, having the system.
We will go there in a minute.
For sure. But I think, this is a good use case. I think that along that same line, you think about, companies, let's say that you are an overseas company and you're wanting to sell products into the United States. And you and I have seen some of the miserable descriptions that have been put out there and the product manuals and things like that. I think that you can use artificial intelligence to clean that up and to make it much more readable and acceptable to the audience you're trying to market to.
Definitely. And on that one, there is a couple of companies out there more in the retail space and, consumer product space, which is, bigger or more, they are 10, 15 years ahead of us. And there is a race in order to get the next ChatGPT to create and help out with these descriptions, right? And we have been in our company doing research and development on how to do this. And we have a prospect. He hasn't closed anything, but we have a prospect that we have been talking with him for 2 years now because he is buying companies. He said, Nelson, I bought these companies. They buy about 3 to 5 companies per year. And they wanted to integrate all these companies into one ERP system. And you imagine buying companies that they have been in business for 20, 40, 50 years of product that were added, right? 40 years ago, it's just different. This is just my complete bias. What I see is that when a company has been in business for 40 years and the owner is detail oriented and is very organized, the descriptions and products tend to be relatively clean. When the owner of the management, they lose control of that one, you can find those repeat items and so forth. I don't go into details, but what I want to tell you is this is a need in our space, which is how people can create or build new parts, how people can curate or clean parts that they are getting from either vendors or competitors or suppliers or someone else in their ERP system. That's a challenge. I mean, if you put it today, it's a human doing it, which is not a bad thing. But there is no taxonomy clear. And I have helped out, I would say, at this point, 2 customers with that. Put the taxonomy together. And one of them, they said, Nelson, this should be something that AI should be doing for us. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. It will take time. No, it's today, again, I would say in 2023, there are solutions that can help you out to get closer to that. But I see this in 5, 10 years, creating, betting, parts and description is going to be much more semi-automated. And the most important part is that you can teach a machine how to do that in an efficient way that you want it. If you are building a part or you are cleansing that part, what kind of description do you want? For people in the fasteners will be something like, thread and finish and color, right? And then internal dimensions, outside dimensions. For MRO people, it's going to be the same thing, right? Things for safety and so forth. Parts that are much more technical tend to be easier and more unified because there is a catalog around them. So what I call catalog companies, the Mac MasterCards of the world, that's relatively easy. And that's why they're able to win so fast from paper to electronic because they already have that taxonomy built and they are really good at that. And people, they're so fascinated. Every time that I talk with someone, ask, which website do you want to have? What is your benchmark? And they will say maybe 50 or 60% says Mac MasterCard. They don't mention Granger or MSC. I mean, Mac MasterCard for them is like, wow, they have everything.
For sure. It's interesting. I think that there is a little bit of fear, obviously, still around, about is that going to take my job and am I going to replace that human? But what I found was interesting. I ran across a poll that came through LinkedIn. Maybe you saw it. I don't know. Molly Green, connection of mine from Net Plus Alliance. She put out this question about how do you feel about ChatGPT? And this came out, I think a week or so ago. And the results of her poll, I think, were encouraging in that 67% said it's intriguing. That is the opening I need. That's all I need. I think if 67% said that's intriguing, only 7% said it's annoying. And then 26% said, I don't know enough about it. But what that tells me, now, granted, maybe it was just forward thinking in a very small sample size, but still, the opportunity's there. That I think that we shouldn't fear this. We should really be exploring this opportunity and not be so afraid of what these types of tools can do or what they're going to displace. It's more, how much time can be freed up so that I can think more creatively. I think that's where my mind goes on this, is when I see a statistic like this, I'm like, okay, people are curious. That provides an opportunity.
I agree with you, Jason. I think the conversation that I have with people, again, going back to distribution, I think definitely they are a little bit more open right now. And my hypothesis is that when they are forward thinkers, they already are even considering something like this. As I just mentioned, this prospect, he was like, okay, Nelson, this is something that AI should be doing on helping us out building parts. But again, I think for the rest of the audience here, I will say I would like to encourage them to see if they can recognize that change. Because that's the thing. What I said, this is like the internet 20 years ago. People said, including, Bill Gates, this is just a trend. Nothing is going to come out of it. Remember? I mean, and he said after a couple of years, yeah, I was wrong. The internet changed the world. I think AI is definitely going to have an impact in everyone's life. And it's having it today. It's going to change. It's not going to get back into old school. It's not that way. And it's going so fast. And just give you an example of that one, Jason. Last year I was invited here in Dallas. There is here the bar, the Texas bar. They have these different sessions. And they have a session last week or before last week about if you can start thinking about intellectual property for AI. And I was like, yeah, this is what I do. Let me jump into that. And again, it was like 3 hours, an hour, technologists talking about these, people that work from the IBMs, the Google and so forth, the Dells. There is another hour of lawyers talking about, and then, a bunch of, questions and answers. And what was fascinating to me is that the lawyers said, as you guys have here the last hour and a half, the technology is going so fast that laws are not able to catch up with that. There is no laws in place to do that. And they say this is going to be evolving and evolving, but goes back to recognize. And I want to use this word. And if someone is listening to this podcast, the word that I want them to memorize is recognize, which is, and that audience, everyone was able to recognize there is a pivoting happening here, right?
Mm-hmm.
In time, right? And it's up to everyone. I just said, if they wanted to be encouraged by that, they would be scared. And I think it goes again, we're humans. So, I just wanted to be real. For me, it happens in a week that I'm super excited. And sometimes I'm scared about what I see on AI, to be honest with you, as a reaction. So it's not like, oh, it's just, he's super excited and he's like that all the time. No, because, what you can see what technology can do is scary. And we can talk about our kids and school, man. When I see that, I'm like, our kids are going to learn anything, right? Because if you can type in a computer, and which I already tried. Hey, can you build an article? You can build actually, you can ask to build, a whole document, right? A thesis if you want. And you can point out exactly why you want it to be written, and it's just write it for you. So how do you know that if someone is answering, an exam? And I think I posted in LinkedIn as well. ChatGPT is able to answer, an MBA exam.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the Wharton School. It was an essay, and that's where it was tested against, and it provided high quality work for an answer. And I think, honestly, Nelson, that scares the education system badly. That's where the fear is. I think it's not in the students. The students, the students see this as a free ride. They say this full disclosure. So I was learning about this obviously the last few weeks. And I kind of looked over at my son, and he's a freshman in high school. And I said, have you ever heard about this ChatGPT thing? And he's kind of smiled and he looked down. He wasn't going to say anything. I'm like, well, okay, have you used it? Well, yeah, maybe I've used it. And I said, okay, what happened? And so he shared with me finally, that I was given an assignment to write, an essay on the Ottoman Empire. And so he just asked ChatGPT to do it. And it created a pretty brilliant paper on this. And now he got busted for it, of course, But the whole point of this, several would have said that is a terrible thing for him to do. And I agree. I don't agree with plagiarism. I think that is a bad choice. And you should be learning the material. But what dawned on me, and I think where I'm struggling a little bit here, is to instantly tell kids that this is evil. That this is a bad thing. And I don't want to do that. And I'm afraid, and this is the result that I saw in the school district that we are a part of, is they immediately shut access to ChatGPT, at least in the classrooms. There's no access in the school or school district. Now, obviously kids can go home and do it on their home computers and things like that. But there was an instant negative stigma against this. And I think that's a failure, in my opinion, more than anything. I think that we are telling children this is a bad thing when it's not. I think we should be, instead of rushing to shut this down, we should be rushing to figure out, how do I teach responsible use of this? And how do I teach how to use this tool to improve learning and to be more creative. That's kind of where I sit on it at this point.
You know what? And I kind of agree with you. And again, my kids, are a little bit more grown up. I have again in high school, and we have been talking about technology with them, all the time. And again, I want to go into. I'm pretty sure people that are listening to us are like, these guys are this or that. So I don't want to put us in any bucket at this point in terms of our either political or economic preference at this point. But I wanted to mention to the audience is going back to the same thing is, are you recognizing that change, or if the education system in your school district is recognizing that change?
Right.
Nobody's going to shut down, ChatGPT. It's just going to increase. And kids are going to look for that. I agree with you, is how they use it, right? And how is that something that could be seen as a tool, and it's going to be hard. That's the other thing, Jason. I think on this one, and that's what I learned from this workshop between lawyers and technologists, is we cannot use the same playbook that we use for other technology in the past. This is not a fax, right? This is not the mobile. I mean, let's put it that way. This is accelerating so big. I'm just telling you, this is our company. We're able to now crunch numbers and train robots like never before because the technology is so affordable. Something that I cannot do it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Just for a company like ours to exist 10 years ago, we have to have millions of dollars in order to do that. Now it's not, because it's accessible. So it's exactly the same thing with the kids, right? They're going to access this. Is how we can show them and teach them and encourage them to use this responsibly, because there is a positive sign of this in terms of how they can create things or how they can explore things in a way that is positive. It's not going to be easy. That's what I'm saying. It's not like a straightforward answer.
No, it's definitely not easy. But I think that, to your point, that we have to be teaching responsible use. And, if I was school district, I would be scrambling. I would be doing everything I can to build an education track around these now very open AI, no pun intended, but open AI products out there that kids can access and students can access, because let's face it, when they go into the working world, those products will be out there. That will be there. And if we're not preparing them today on how to use these with creativity in mind, not cheating, but creativity, and I think there needs to obviously be a distinction, but I think we're so fearful of the cheating side, of the skirting of the rules side, that we're completely missing the opportunity to introduce people to creativity and to really advance them as they're coming out of these education environments.
Yeah, and I think Wharton as well, MIT, they put together their own kind of results of evaluating ChatGPT and other 3 products. I used another 2 ones. I won't mention names because I want people to be curious to research themselves. But what was fascinating to me is that what they mentioned there is that, it's providing all these answers, but at the end of the day, it has to be a human that one needs to validate if the outcome is real or not real. You know what I'm saying? Because trash in, trash out. I mean, let's put it this way. If we put it together a bunch of fake content, let's say in distribution, right? We just put upside down all the answers and all the articles that you have written in that 40 years. That's what the machine will learn. The machine will have any conscious, right? If that's a word that we can use to distinguish what is right from what is wrong and what is the outcome. And that's where the human comes in, right? That's the beauty about this. You can train the machine, but still the machine is a lot of dependable on the human telling if the outcome is what they are looking for and is positive or is negative. And that's what I see this big opportunity in education to help out the kids to learn, right? Okay, you put this question here, but how do you know the answer is right or wrong?
Yes.
Or how is this helping you or not? I mean, just an example. And just going back to, our work in distribution, I just wanted to give you another use case that was fascinating for me last week. So I'm working with this customer and they have NetSuite, right? And I asked him a question about something that he was doing. And he's not a technologist. He's actually one of operator. And he came back and gave me like an answer that I was like, man, that's great. I mean, you're learning a lot. I said, no, it's not just ChatGPT. I just put how to do this in NetSuite, blah, 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 and just give me the answer. He's 35. That's a use case. I mean, how many people listening to this podcast that are using the main ERP systems that they may have a struggle finding answers from or looking into, or they are lazy, whatever you wanted to call it, or they wanted to be very efficient, they can put just the answer there. How can I get this report? How can I use this? How can I? And again, those, as you mentioned, is just answers in 3-4 seconds that will save them a lot of time in order to make things that they wanted to do. Again, that's just a very simple use case that a business can use right now using ChatGPT in order to get answers.
And in that case, they're not displacing anyone because, frankly, the customer service or the ones who traditionally gave answers on the product, they're feeling the same labor crunch that many others are. There's not enough people to answer the questions. So if a tool like this can supplement that difficulty in providing, in providing human answers, that's a great thing. And frankly, it'll allow people to utilize their software more effectively. They will want to continue with that software, continue paying the maintenance fees. It is not a bad thing for the software operator. This is a good thing.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. And that's the conversation that I have with a customer last week. We have our quarterly review that we have our customers. This is an owner, third generation. Their business is quite healthy. And he's old school, quite stubborn in terms of this is distribution, right? And we were explaining to him what we're doing in supply chain. And he's okay, Nelson, show me that you're improving my turns. And I was like, yeah, but it's not about turns. It's just about, turns and what is your service level, right? And what is your gross margin? Oh, yeah, I know that, but I wanted to see my turns. Okay, let's look into the turns. And we're able to go through that in 5 minutes. And he's like, Nelson, this is fantastic. How can I get the detail on this? And I said, what do you want the detail? Oh, because I want to see it and that. I said, no, that's exactly what we have trained our robots to do it for you. I'm just spitting out to you the information and the insights. And they get into the prescribed action. So they were fascinated by that. I just put in this again in distribution. So I told them, you have this inventory on hand, this inventory on order. And I said, this inventory on order, I'm prescribing action of what orders you need to cancel because you placed these orders 3 months ago, 9 months ago, and we know that you're not going to need it. And he's like, how do you know? You don't know my business. You don't know the customers. You don't know the product. You don't know my vendors. Say, no, Nelson, they don't know it, but we hire, in your case, 50,000 robots for your SKUs, 55,000 for your customers. And they are crunching data 24/7 and telling us that for you.
And they're looking at market data and economy and what's happening in your market space. And you know what? All those robots together can come up with a pretty darn good answer.
Exactly. And funny thing is that he was really focused on turns, but he told me last year, Nelson, I know my workforce is aging and someone is going to retire last year, which happened. And I wanted to make sure I'm able to run my business with this amount of our employees. Say, yeah, we can do it because I know that we are not replacing, but they're being more efficient. But again, going back to what I mentioned before, Jason, it's about recognizing. I think he was able to recognize at that point that he won't be able to run his company with the same amount of people, not because he didn't want to hire someone, not because he wanted to displace anyone, because the reality is that our economy in the US is going to be different 10 years from now because every single baby boomer is going to be retired. And we cannot fight that. And we don't have enough people. So we need to find a way where, as you can say, we can make everyone's jobs easier and faster and more efficient because we need that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So I'm kind of looking at the time here. We should probably kind of wrap up our discussion here, but I feel like we've just kind of scratched the surface on the opportunities here and where people can go on this. If you were to send someone to do more research on how to harness AI and how to use and maybe take a more positive spin on it, where would you direct them? Where do you think they should go looking?
I would say let's start with this. I think it depends on where they are in this journey, Jason. If they are really looking into how this can help me out personally as a professional, because a lot of people here are listening to us that are, maybe entry level, right? Managers, right? And they wanted to understand, where to go. I think for them, definitely there is a lot of resources out there for them. Basically, the main three ones are going to be, unfortunately, Google, I would say, which can tell them that. That's first one. The second one, if they are really interested, they can go into YouTube, again, Google, And there is a lot of videos out there that explain this in more detail, how it works and so forth. Maybe we can put in, when you post this, I can give you a couple of links of people that I have been following that they can start listening to it just to get more acquainted to that. And the third one is definitely MIT. I mean, MIT itself, there is a MIT magazine that they have, and I can send you as well the link. Those are the three places that I will look into just to get acquainted with this. And you can go as basic as possible, or you can go really in depth into this. But this is just starting, Jason. That's my whole point. You asked me that question, and I'm like, my brain is screaming at me saying, this is just starting. It's not even the first quarter of the game. This just started for every one of us. So it's going to be a discovery of everyone here personally and our industry. And that's the fascinating part. I love to be in this. If you ask me a season in time that I wanted to be in distribution, is this one. This is going to change the whole game for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's up to us if we can, wanted to ride it or not.
I totally agree with you. And I think it is such a fascinating subject. It has been one of the more fascinating journeys that I want to follow that I've had in my career in a long time, and so I think this is one of those that I'm excited about. I'm excited about helping others find their path in this as well.
Yeah.
So, no, this has been a great discussion, and I'm so glad. Thank you for coming on and taking some time and talking a little bit about, because you're light years ahead of most of us on this stuff. You've been working with this for so much longer. We just got the soundbite 3 weeks ago on the media streams. So this is exciting. So I really appreciate you coming on and taking some time with me.
You're very welcome, Jason. Again, if anyone is listening here and, after stuff they wanted to discuss, you can reach out to me, in LinkedIn or through, Jason, website. So I will be more than happy to talk. But again, the two words I wanted to mention there is, do you recognize this or not? That's the first question, right?
And
the second one is, what you want to do about it, right? You're just going to hide, scare, whatever. And that's a decision that everyone needs to do. But it's exciting times. I agree with you. I'm looking forward for this, definitely.
Perfect. I'll make sure that I have links, to LinkedIn for you and how to get a hold of you personally. So you're going to get flooded with a bunch of questions. Sorry to tell you, my man, but that's just the way it's going to be. So
that's awesome. And we can share. We can share with you, and you can, post it here, because it's an ongoing conversation. And again, I'm excited. So everyone that is scared, don't be scared. This is what we have, and we'll go through this process of reinventing our industry, and it's going to be super exciting. Yeah, definitely.
Well, take care. Good to talk to you again.
Same way. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.